Day 17 of fast drafting my work in progress went really well. My first attempt at recording today's video did not. I forgot to turn on my microphone, which you see the little light is on now. So I recorded a 20-minute video with no sound, but here we are again. And it's probably for the best because I was having a problem kind of getting my thoughts together anyway. So let's see how take 2 goes. Fast drafting day 17 went well. I did get a lot of work done. I've stopped really tracking my word count because right now I'm more interested in the progression of the story based on my timeline. So I'm not going to focus so much on word count as I am going to be on completing the story. And then I'll give you a final count at the end of this project so that you know where we ended up. But I have to admit, I woke up this morning feeling a little disheartened. I had the strongest feeling that I would not be able to get this done in time to get it to my editors by May 13th. But after today's progress, I feel much better on that front. I spent a good 6 hours at my computer, and I think things are coming along well. I do feel like the new beginning is a much better place to start the story, and going forward, I feel like readers will be more interested in finding out what happens to my character. So in this case, I'm going to have one main point of view character, which is not something I normally do in a book, especially when I'm writing romances. I go back and forth between the male and the female character. So having this book from the point of view of a single character is going to make it probably much more personal because hopefully the reader will feel much more attached to my character over time. And the way the book starts for my character is really, it's a doozy. So it does relate to actual historic events, does relate to the Civil War, at least in the start. And then it goes to Nevada and things pick up in Carson City where my main character will be adjusting to a new home and learning about all the things that are happening around her. She will be more distant from the things that are happening with the Civil War, but Nevada statehood is also tied to the Civil War because probably a large reason Nevada became a state when it did was due to things happening in the eastern U.S. So I feel like getting all those things together, especially with the new starting point for the story, I think that will give it a much more kind of start with a broad overview of what's happening and then close in more on the historic happenings in Carson City. And I'm very excited about this book. I really feel like it could be good. And as I was telling JT this morning, I know we feel this way about every book we write. And even though you might say I'm in the messy middle because I'm probably half to 3/4 of the way through the story. I'm still feeling very positive about the outcome of this book. And I do hope it will be something that readers find interesting. And I do hope that in some sneaky way I teach them a little history along the way. This goes back to something I've wanted to do for a long time, which is, as a child, I wanted to be a teacher. And I was discouraged from doing that by my family because they said I would not earn enough money as a teacher, which is absolutely true. But their idea of me becoming a lawyer was not going to happen. I just don't have the personality to be a lawyer. I mean, I could maybe do something like a paralegal. And for a time, I was a legal advertising clerk for a newspaper. So it's, I'm familiar with very basic legal concepts relating to the publication of notices and things like that. But that was not where my interests lay. So in writing this book, I feel like in some ways I'm kind of going back to my early wish to be a teacher, along with my long held dream of being a full time writer. So I'm kind of mixing those two goals that I had as I'm moving forward. And we'll see if this book does well. I may write more historical fiction, and I can probably pretty easily come up with a series for this. But I'd like to see where this one goes first. If it's not too popular, I might just set it aside and go back to. I'm going to continue my Restless Spirit series, obviously. I want to finish that. But whether or not I write more historical fiction is yet to be seen. And I might actually write some historic nonfiction at some point. I would love to write the story of our house. But that will definitely be at a future date. And you may notice that my background is a little different today. I'm actually hiding out in the basement because we're having some pretty strong winds today, so the house is creaking a lot. And I was thinking it might be quieter down here, but our sump pump is running, so if you hear a low hum in the background, that's what it is. I'm hoping it's not too obvious, but I think it's probably less obvious than the wind. We appear to be due for more storms. I don't think we're quite done with the interesting spring weather yet. It's not quite the hot, dry season. So our sump pump may be going off for a while yet. Normally it stops late summer, early fall. Things dry out enough that the water table drops. And I'm hoping that happens again this year because I like that break we get from not having to worry about the pump keeping our basement dry. We've learned a lot about basements and pumps in the time since we've lived in this house. And it's not something I really wanted to learn, but I guess I don't really mind because I do like the basement space. I've set up a little area off to one side where I plan to do some painting at some point. I do have some canvases and I've got my easel up. And once I get my writing under control and I'm well into the Spooktober project doing my poems on my typewriter, I'm going to throw in a little artwork too and do a variety of things throughout the course of the day instead of sitting at my computer all day long. And I think that will be a much more enjoyable way to pass my time because as much as I enjoyed spending 6 or 7 hours at my computer today, my body didn't love it. So I definitely need to move around a little bit more and get out. JT did another nice long walk today because he was thinking about his work in progress. He had some issues that he needed to figure out, and I'm not quite sure where he's standing on the story right now. I think he's at 40,000 plus words, and he's afraid he might not be able to keep those based on how he's feeling about the story. It's always challenging, especially as a pantser. He's just writing things up as they come to him, whereas I'm more of a plotter. And definitely for Battleborn Bride, I have a distinct timeline, I have a distinct outline, and I want to make sure the story follows those very closely because I don't want to miss anything or put it in the wrong place. So I think that's a little bit easier to work with because if I did drop something, I could go in and figure out where it needs to go and just pop it in there. Whereas the way he's writing, he can go in a variety of different directions since it's fictional and he doesn't have the historic structure that I'm dealing with. So we're working on 2 very different projects right now, and it's very interesting to kind of compare notes on how we're feeling about our works in progress. That's one of the fun things about us doing this as a couple because we spend a lot of time talking about writing, and of course we spend a lot of time on our writing business. So I think this is a great way for us to enjoy our retirement together. And, normally we're not bored for sure. We have a lot of things going on. So it's a really good time. I do feel like I'm getting a handle on retirement, you might say. At least for today. We'll see how I feel tomorrow. Because as you've seen, if you've been following my videos, there are definitely a lot of highs and lows. And just like at any other time in our lives, we're dealing with external things. We're dealing with how we're feeling physically. So, every day is a new challenge, but you get up and you face the challenges and make the best day you can. So, I was also thinking about my videos, not so much about why I'm posting them, because I've already talked about that, but I was thinking of one of the benefits of me posting these videos is that I don't know that a lot of readers really understand what goes into the writing process. Most people tend to post when they finished a book, when they're promoting a book. They don't really do the little nitpicky, monotonous day-to-day updates that I'm doing. And I think it could be good for somebody to watch at least some of these to get a better idea of what goes into picking up the books they read, because we've become so used to instant gratification that I think a lot of readers take for granted the fact that it takes a lot of time and energy to get a book out there. Once it's out there, it's available forever, but getting it out there takes a lot of time. And I think AI is not helping this because a lot of people are trying to take advantage of that by creating AI slop. And I think that's only reinforcing the instant gratification idea, because I've heard that I'm not going to call them authors, some people are putting out hundreds of AI generated books and making a lot of money off of them, which I find especially frustrating as someone who is putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into my work and who is getting very little return. Now, I'm not saying that to say that, I think everybody should read my book, because obviously my books are going to only appeal to a certain audience. But I do find it frustrating that people are taking shortcuts and they're actually earning a lot of money based on the idea that people really do enjoy instant gratification. So if they're churning out book after book after book and people like the author, then they're going to keep picking up those junk books and reading them, which starts kind of a never-ending cycle. And this is leading to some other challenges for us small authors, because for many of the platforms that we upload our manuscripts to, we can do it for free. There have been companies that charge a small fee before you can upload anything, and that looks like that's going to become more common, because I think these platforms are trying to prevent the AI slop. But the problem is, if people are making money off of it, it's not really going to prevent them from paying that fee. Whereas us small authors who are not earning a lot of return on what we're putting out there, we're really going to be affected financially. And that goes along with all the other fees that we're paying. So it is a frustrating time for authors, but it's also a great time for authors, because we do have the ability to do this publishing journey on our own, whereas in the past it was much harder, because you really had to try to get a traditional publishing contract. Not necessarily with one of the big publishers, but you had to find someone who could publish your work physically, like a printer. And being able to do this on our computers, format it ourselves, get people to design our covers, and then have companies like Amazon, unfortunately, print paperback copies for us, has been very helpful. And we do pay for author copies when we order them. We do pay for the proof copies that we order to make sure the book is formatted correctly. But for the most part, it's a much less expensive proposition than it would have been back in the day, where we had to go to a printer and have them print out numerous copies of the book, because they would have to do a print run. It had to be worth their time to typeset the book. And so in that way, it's been very beneficial to small authors to be able to go out and publish their own work. But that may become harder and harder. And unfortunately, that may lead to a greater increase in AI slop books because the small authors may have to take a step back and say, I can't afford to upload my books anymore. So we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, it is a bit frustrating. And I can't say that I am not also prone to wanting instant gratification, but I do remember the days when, for example, when I was a kid and I had to save my pennies to buy the latest Nancy Drew or the latest 45. And I really think I appreciated them much more after having to spend the time to save the money and go to the store and pick them out. And if they weren't in stock, to wait until they were restocked, and or back in the days before we could watch any movie we wanted at any time we wanted. You had to wait for it to come out in theaters, or you had to wait for it to be in second release, or you had to wait for it to show up on TV. It was like there was a lot of waiting, but I think the anticipation really plays into how much we enjoy something, because the instant gratification, yes, getting a book, reading it right away as an ebook, that's fun. And I do download a lot of ebooks to my Kindle. I do use Libby through the library, and I read my share of ebooks. But I still love the feel of a paperback too. I love going to a store to get a book. And I miss the days where we had those huge release parties and things like midnight movie showings. Times have definitely changed, and maybe not always for the better. But that's just kind of what was occurring to me today as I was thinking about maybe the unintended benefit of me putting out these daily videos. It's not just going to be a fun journal for me to refer back to, but it could be informational to somebody who is so used to instant gratification that they don't understand what time it takes to get to the point where they can receive that instant gratification. So I do hope people take a step back. I know there are people now who are going back to physical media like vinyl LPs or CDs. Having the ebook version of something doesn't mean you will always have that electronic copy, even though it's supposed to be maintained permanently. But if you have a physical piece of media or a physical book in your house, you have more control over that. You paid for it, you brought it home, and you can access it whenever you want to. Whereas with ebooks or digital music services, you can easily lose the things that you've saved. And so I think that's one of the reasons that people are going back to the physical media, because they want more control over it. And I'm hoping that in the process, maybe they'll remember that the anticipation of waiting for something to come out is not always a bad thing. I really think it enhances your enjoyment. So that's a lot for me to be thinking about today, but that kind of got me started this morning as I was gearing up to spend day 17 of fast drafting my work in progress. And I don't know if these videos will continue on a daily basis after this year, but depending on how the rest of the year goes, even on the days when I don't really feel like recording, I'm still doing it a lot more willingly than I used to. I am not second guessing myself as much as I was. I'm actually trying to record these and just put them up without thinking too much about them. And I think that's helped me a lot to try to work past my self-doubt. So there are many benefits of me doing this. And definitely over time, I know that since I don't spend so much time out in public anymore, I'm losing some of my ability to be in public situations for long periods of time without my energy being drained. So I'm going to have to continue doing that on a more regular basis as well, because doing things on a regular routine helps keep us sharp. And, as introverted as I am, and as much as I need to recharge my batteries, I do need to interact with the world at some points too. So I'll be interacting through my YouTube videos. I'll be interacting by releasing my books, and I will be interacting by going out and meeting people in public. So if you're watching this, maybe someday we'll actually run into each other in person, which could be kind of fun. But in the meantime, this is my second 20-minute video for the day, and my microphone is still active, so hopefully this one has sound. I really don't want to do this for a third time, because I would like to go and relax for a little bit before it's bedtime. The days go so quick. Anyway, I thank you for joining me again. I hope you've had a wonderful Monday and that you're looking forward to a fun week, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.